Czechast, a podcast in English about Czech and Moravian society, history, culture and economy.
Hello and welcome to Czechast, the podcast in English about all things Czech. I'm Vít Pohanka. We often complain that new technologies and social networks are undermining, if not outright destroying, the role of traditional media. And yes, there's probably some truth to that. But on the other hand, they also make it possible to sit in a small town in the Bohemian Moravian highlands with snow falling quietly behind the window and follow events unfolding in a faraway Munich literally live online. Because every winter, for one long weekend, Munich in Bavaria turns into one of the most important political stages in the world. Dozens of heads of state and government arrive alongside around 160 foreign, defense and other ministers, plus generals, diplomats, analysts and journalists. For a few days, it becomes a place where the world's security debates happen in real time. And that's exactly what I did this weekend for Radio Prague International, as I followed Czech representatives at the Munich Security Conference and the debates and panel discussions they took part in. As usual, the report I prepared for broadcast ended up being far too long and had to be shortened significantly. But luckily we have Czechast, where there's as much time and space as we need. So I decided to bring you the full version of my report on Czech participation at the Munich Security Conference in 2026, and here it is.
Czechast, a podcast in English about all things Czech. Whether you're an English-speaking expat living in Czechia and Slovakia, or a descendant of the Czechs, Moravians and Slovaks who left for a better life in America, Australia, Britain or Canada so long ago that you don't speak the language of the old country, this podcast in English is for you.
Thank you very much. We gather here today as members of a historic alliance, an alliance that saved and changed the world.
The Munich Security Conference was dominated by international attention on US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who sought to reassure European allies by calling the United States the child of Europe, while also warning against what he described as the West's managed decline. Ukraine was also high on the agenda, with President Volodymyr Zelensky expressing concern that Washington has too often pressed Kyiv to make concessions. Yet, beyond the headline speeches, the conference also hosted a number of interesting debates, including one on the rise of populism and its impact on Western democracies and their security. In a panel titled Vox Populi, responding to the rise of populism, Czech President Petr Pavel shared the stage with the prominent liberal US Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, European People's Party leader Manfred Weber, and Argentine lawmaker Diana Fernández Molero. President Pavel argued that populism in itself should not be automatically treated as something negative, and he explained its roots in Czechia.
I believe that a number of people in former communist countries believe that with the change of the system, they will achieve all the benefits of capitalism while keeping all the benefits of socialism. That means getting richer, having access to travel, study, work abroad, having nice cars, plenty of goods in the shops, but no responsibility. And that created a lot of frustration, because when people realize that not everyone will get rich, and there will always be people who will be better off, and those who will not necessarily suffer, but will have living conditions more difficult than the others, then that frustration, if it is not properly addressed, it creates a lot of tension and frustration. And that was easily taken forward by those who believed that feeding on frustration of people, offering them short and nice solutions that they could never deliver because they were not in power. They usually were in opposition, and they were only feeding on these insecurities, pointing to those who allegedly were behind these problems. They mostly referred to the government, to institutions like courts, to media. And of course, a number of people were prone to believe that their misery is because of lack of support and attention of the elites. I think it's very similar to any other country where the populism is a problem. But in general, I don't think that we should give a populism a label of some bad. Because it depends how we define populism. I know a number of politicians who are proud of being called populists, because they believe that listening to frustration and problems of the people, transferring them into policies is actually the very sense of and the meaning of politics. But the problem starts when this populism is turned against the institutions that are there to protect democracy.
Nevertheless, said President Pavel, in a democratic country we have to live with whoever wins fair and open elections, and that populist leaders often moderate if they get to power and assume responsibility.
Well, first, I think we have to respect the will of people. If we live in democracies, we have to understand that not always there will be parties that we like. But at the same time, the experience is that when these people who used to be for a long time in opposition on the critical side, once they are put in a position where they have the responsibility to deliver, then they suddenly understand the complexity of a situation, and they change a lot of their, let's say, extreme positions that they held before. I believe that the best protection is to have a good set of checks and balances, to have some counterweight against the potential extreme moves. Another layer of protection could be vibrant civil society that can also do an excellent job because most of those populist politicians are very sensitive to public opinion.
One of the questions from the audience focused on whether rising defense spending across Europe due to the war in Ukraine risks crowding out investment in social policies, potentially fueling further populist frustration. Asked whether security and social cohesion must compete for the same resources, President Pavel answered from the Czech perspective.
In case of Czech Republic, it's slightly easier because we are one of the most industrialized countries in Europe with a great tradition in defense industry. So if I'm cynical, I would say the stronger defense industry, the more taxes in Czech Republic, the more money for social benefits, for social policies. So it's not in a contradiction. Unfortunately, current government is not using that opportunity because EU has come with a provision that whatever is spent on defense above 2% doesn't count into the deficit, which in fact encourages the government to increase defense spending without cutting social benefits. I think this is the way, at least for some time to go in both ways.
So that was President Pavel on Friday. On Saturday night, Czech Foreign Minister Petr Macinka took part in a late evening panel discussion on what organizers called the rift within the West. He was in a very prominent company. Alongside him were former US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and the present Polish Foreign Minister Radoslav Sikorski. The discussion was at times sharp and emotionally charged. Minister Macinka argued that the West is no longer a unified civilization, but rather a battleground of competing values.
Does the West still exist? Was the question. So, I think the West is probably no longer the unified civilization, but it's rather a place with a contested territory of values. So on one hand, we see the concept of West as a civilization of freedom, On the other hand, we see the West as a project of some progressivist globalization. So I see the West divided. On one hand, is the freedom or equality. It's between the conservative points of view and progressivism. And I think these two conceptions are against each other. And I think people should probably learn to listen to each other because the gap is wider and wider, and this is
the gap between what?
Yeah, the gap between those two concepts. One is traditional or conservative. The second is more progressive, and one is about some national sovereignty. The second is about supranationality. I see the divided West between conservatism, progressivism, which rejects the traditions and brings us to some artificial concept of social engineering. I'm the conservative politician, so I see some dangers of the progressivist way of thinking.
Minister Macinka's Polish colleague Radoslav Sikorski retorted.
May I interject?
Yes, you may, because already we're getting useful disagreement on exactly.
It's not true that globalization was a progressivist idea. It was a business idea. It was tinged with racism. We'll do all the clean jobs and we'll export all the dirty jobs to China and elsewhere. And it was an idea about maximizing profits.
The debate became more pointed when the moderator asked whether Donald Trump's approach to Ukraine had deepened divisions within the West. Hillary Clinton sharply criticized the US president. Minister Macinka responded by defending what he described as a political reaction in America, leading to direct exchange between the two.
Peter, do you agree that the Trump administration's actions on Ukraine have produced a rift in the West?
Well, first, I think you really don't like him.
That is absolutely true. But I really, not only do I not like him, I don't like him because of what he's doing to the United States and the world. And I think you should take a hard look at it if you think that there is something good that will come out of it.
Peter,
what I think Trump is doing in America, I think it is reaction for something for some policies that really went too far from the regular people, too far from reality. So we saw the cancel culture. We saw the woke revolution. I don't agree with the gender revolution, the climate alarmism.
Which gender? Women having their rights?
Let Peter go on.
I think there are two genders. So, but some of us think that there is more than one or more than two gender. I think there is male and female, and the rest probably is a social construct. So this is something that went too far.
But does that justify selling out the people of Ukraine who are on the front lines dying to save their freedom and their two genders, if that's what you're worried about?
Can I please finish my points? I'm sorry that it makes you nervous. I'm really sorry for that.
It makes me nervous. It makes me
but seriously, can we let Peter finish, please? Can we let Peter finish, please?
I have to say one more thing. You said that Ukraine fights for our future and for our freedom. I think first, Ukraine fights for Ukraine's future, Ukraine's freedom, and Ukraine's sovereignty and independence. So we should help them, of course. But what I see in some people in the West, they are trying to help the Ukraine. But that's another question. I don't know if Trump's administration is helping the Ukraine to stop the war. I believe that there is such an approach. I don't see any other strong geopolitical player who would be able to force Russia to stop killing the Ukrainian people and stop destroying their country. I don't see. Maybe China, but China makes nothing. I don't know if the pressure, if Trump is forcing Russia in the way that they will stop the war. I don't know. I only see that the only Americans right at the moment can make it. I see the dialogue.
Do you think Europe could put more pressure on Russia, for example, by putting pressure on Turkey, by targeting the refineries of oil more, and so on?
I think Europe also makes some pressure. We release sanctions. We do what we can. But I think the Russians, they probably don't care. When I visited Ukraine, I saw the goodwill of all people in Ukraine. They were really united and willing to stop the war. But
they keep fighting. They seem to be.
They also made some steps that probably a year ago no one from them would allow to say or even suggest. Now they are ready to make some steps back. Now it's ball on the Russian side, but I don't see any goodwill on their side.
Later in the debate, Minister Macinka called for what he described as a calmer political climate and greater willingness to listen to opposing views. He also returned briefly to Ukraine, arguing for realism and a possible ceasefire.
First, I think we should try to learn to listen to each other and not to label the ideological opponent as the public enemy. We are here on the West, and let's respect ourselves in the differences we have. So I don't really like such a labeling as fascist. I think it's
there are fascists in the world.
Well, maybe there are, but
including in Europe.
I think there are. It ended some 70 or 80 years ago.
No, it hasn't.
Hopefully, this is something I don't really like. That every day, every time I hear labeling someone as fascist or Nazist or whatever, I think we should calm down, because this is dividing the society. We are maybe you are smart people. I'm not as smart as you, but. So we should try to learn to talk to each other again, because this is something that went too far. I don't want to talk about the Ukraine, because it's the whole day talks, important talks. I listened to President Zelensky, what he's saying, and he's got the horrible position. I'm not sure if Ukraine is able to use the military to beat Russia. That would be perfect. That would be perfect. But I think we should be realistic. So the first should be the ceasefire. I don't know how to make it. I think that I don't want to repeat myself. That.
No, all right. Thank you.
Finally, Petr Macinka again clashed with his Polish counterpart Radoslav Sikorski, particularly over the democratic legitimacy of European Union institutions. While Sikorski defended the EU's democratic structures, Macinka argued that national sovereignty remains the only reliable foundation of democracy.
I see that the fundamental divide of the West is not between the West and the rest of the world, but within the West itself. As I'm listening to this, so I think there was some question about, or where was it, about the national sovereignty. Do I remember that well? But so
there was,
yes. So I think that the national sovereignty and the sovereign nation state is the only platform that can guarantee the democracy, because this is the only possible way how to have the cultural continuity and how to bring the power into some limited intentions. If we are not sovereign country, if we are lost in some multilateral organizations, then there is a risk.
The EU is a democracy.
Well, EU is consisted by democratic national
and a democratic elected parliament.
Democratic elected parliament without any legislative initiative. So this is the only parliament in the world that don't have the initiative to bring the law, to bring the legislation.
Yeah, because the legislation is brought forward by the Council and the Commission.
Yes, but tell me, what is the connection between the voter and the Commission. Is there any voter from the Czech Republic who has some influence on who will be the Polish commissioner? I think there is no connection.
Commissioners are appointed by democratically elected the governments.
But these commissioners are.
That's why they love QMB.
They probably don't veto to each other, so they have. Everyone has some portfolio, and
like any other government.
It is like a government, but even the national government is based on elections and some majority.
As is the Commission.
I don't think it is in the same.
In your country, ministers are not directly elected; they are selected by Parliament or by the Prime Minister.
In my country, there is a majority in Parliament that gives
and a majority in the European Parliament too.
Well,
which appoints the Commission, as you know.
But my position is closer to the voter than the position of Euro Commissioner.
Of course, it's a continental system.
It is, and I don't say it is an undemocratic system.
Good.
I don't say that. I don't say that. I just say that the democracy. That's the reason why we have to have the national sovereign states. That's it.
So the exchange in Munich showed once again that debates about sovereignty, values and Ukraine remain highly sensitive, even among Western allies themselves. That was my extended set of notes from Czech participation at the Munich Security Conference 2026. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow, like it, or recommend it to your friends. It really helps me bring you more stories about Czechia, its history, culture, sometimes its economy, and of course, what's happening right now, as I did today. I enjoy making this podcast tremendously, and I hope it brings you something new and informative as well. So thank you very much for listening, and until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, stay curious, and as we say in Czech, naslyšenou.
Czechast, a podcast in English about all things Czech. Whether you're an English-speaking expat living in Czechia and Slovakia, or a descendant of the Czechs, Moravians and Slovaks who left for a better life in America, Australia, Britain or Canada so long ago that you don't speak the language of the old country, this podcast in English is for you.